The honourable member from Coastal Bay Central, Notre Dame.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's an honour to rise here in this place to speak on behalf of the good people of Coastal Bay Central Notre Dame who sent me here, and they're quite concerned about the business of this place being hung up and the fact that we're not addressing what we could be addressing, but we're stopped from doing so because this side of the House right here, Mr. Speaker, will not follow the order that you laid out for them to produce those documents as relating to the Sustainable Development Technology Fund, unredacted, as you commanded them to do. And you know what? If they listen, Mr. Speaker, we could be business as usual and dealing with other important issues in this country. But right now, Mr. Speaker, what's really important to Canadians, to people, to constituents of all of us in this House, and even constituents represented by Liberal members, Mr. Speaker, that want to know what are in or what's in those documents that were sort of produced. They were somewhat redacted, but what's the big cover-up? Bring the documents forward. This privileged debate is over, and we back to business. But first of all, we have to find out where that $400 million went. Yeah, where'd it go? My honourable colleague from Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, right here. He's wondering where those funds went. You know what? And Canadians have lost faith in this NDP-Liberal coalition, which seems to be alive and well. Mr. Speaker, nearly 20% of the Prime Minister's caucus, 24 of them, signed a letter asking for a leadership review. Yesterday, what happened? One of his ministers resigned. Some people think that he may be the other Randy. I don't know, but who knows? He may be. I'm trying to be very careful, Mr. Speaker, because I know that it's very close to your heart, and you're really making sure that we don't step over any boundaries here. But things are crumbling on that side of the House. Canadians can see it. The business of the country is falling apart. So, you know what? On June 10th, there was a motion adopted calling for the production of documents related to the SDTC fund to the law clerk. What happened over the summer? Nothing. And then documents were either withheld, or redacted at the order of the big boss, the Prime Minister. So common sense Conservative House leader raised the question of privilege, Mr. Speaker, because of that failure to comply with that House order. On September 26th, you ruled that House privilege had been breached. Is that correct, Mr. Speaker? Okay, 24th, 25th, 26th, you know, give or take a day or two. You know what? What's a day or two? Look at the time we're chewing up right here in asking that the point of privilege be honoured and the documents be delivered to the clerk. So it's time to get on with business, Mr. Speaker. Just produce the documents. Let us get on with things. So what are we going to find out? What are we going to find out about that $400 million? You know what? I've got communities, Mr. Speaker, in Coastal Bay, Central Notre Dame, regions that are fraught with crime. People are fearful. As you heard me say today in a question, when I asked the Prime Minister why not call an election and let the people vote on this crime record, because I attended a town hall this Friday past in a town of 800 people Friday afternoon, nearly 300 showed up at a town hall on crime, and the RCMP were there, talking about how their hands are tied. Their hands are tied. The criminal justice system is not being supported for rural Canadians. They don't even see the point of laying charges in a lot of cases because the minimum sentences be thrown out of court. It takes so long to make its way through the criminal justice system in Newfoundland and Labrador. In fact, not long ago, a murder case that was pretty much cut and dried got thrown right out of court because it had waited so long without having one day in court. And this is happening all over the country. And when we've got police, Mr. Speaker, that they've got to have everything's got to be perfect. If the RCMP have to wait 3 or 4 years to get the ducks in a row to do a major cocaine or crack bust, to shut down a crack house, how many more addicts are being created every week? Week after week, month after month, year after year. Because they know that the NDP-Liberal soft on crime criminal justice system favors the criminal. It favors the criminal. It disadvantages those that are impacted by crime. And those families whose loved ones are addicts or becoming addicts, the crime is addiction related. When you have people who worked hard all their life, senior citizens who attend a town hall, and not just one, not just two, not just three, multiple of them, stand up and tell the RCMP that we're sleeping with a gun next to our bed, that's an infraction of the criminal code. But what can the RCMP do? They don't have any resources. And the people feel like they're left to fend for themselves. It's becoming like the Wild West. It's crazy. It's deplorable. It should not be happening in Canada, in rural Canada, where people during the pandemic moved from metro regions of Canada back to their rural communities, to where they grew up, where they felt safe, where now, in just a short 2 or 3 years later, they're so afraid that they're telling us that they're sleeping with a gun next to their bed. I heard it with my very own ears. The RCMP heard it. This is not hearsay. This is not something that the media is going to say, oh, Cliff Small is a big bluff and he's hyping it all up and he's making this stuff up, he's being dramatic. This is very, very real. I spoke to a clergy a few days before I went to that town hall meeting, and I said to him, I said, you know, you're a man of faith, you're in the community, what are you hearing? This is what I'm hearing. He said, MP, what's going to happen is that vigilantism is going to take over, and somebody's going to get shot. This is absolutely deplorable. Police don't have the resources. The depot was shut down for 2 years, while every university and every community college and every high school in Canada was full on. The education system found a way to operate. Why did RCMP depot have to be shut down for 2 years while all of these members that the RCMP have are moving into retirement age, and they knew what the shortfall would be with no recruits graduating from that college for 2 full years? I mean, whose directive was that? I don't think it was a directive of the RCMP to shut down the depot. I think the directive came from the soft NDP Liberal leadership. It's absolutely terrible. And I'm sure my colleague from Moose Jaw, he understands that RCMP college could have kept graduating members. So right now, we've got rural crime on the rise, addiction-related crime going through the roof, which is a tricky kind of crime to address for the police. It's not an easy crime to address because it's addiction-driven. It's not. There's absolutely, in most cases, no motives, no logic, no nothing. It's just driven by the need for the next fix, and they can't even. These poor addicts can't even think through the process of right and wrong, Mr. Speaker. Where else could some of that $400 million been spent? You know, I think about the oyster industry in Prince Edward Island, Mr. Speaker. I visited there this past summer, an industry that means over $100 million to the economy of Prince Edward Island, completely in peril. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the reminder, but I got this little advantage right here. I'm looking right at that clock. So it's just to let you know, you don't need these. I'm good. But thank you very much for the kind reminder. I won't go over time. If I do, hopefully I don't bore you. But, you know, Mr. Speaker, the people of Prince Edward Island were promised $1 million to conduct research to try to solve the MSX parasite problem that's going to completely wipe out the oyster industry in Prince Edward Island. Now, I would probably be safe to say you'd like to enjoy a nice Malpeque oyster once in a while. Yeah, well, you're not going to be enjoying any in 2 or 3 years' time because this parasite kills any oyster that's infested with it within 2 years. And it's going to completely wipe out the entire oyster industry in Prince Edward Island. We're not hearing anything from the members that represent Prince Edward Island. Well, I'm glad as an islander to stand here and speak on behalf of the oyster industry in Prince Edward Island. And, you know, just a little ways away on another island, on Ile de Madeleine, the minister announced not long ago, well, lots of money from the Blue Slush Fund, from Small Craft Harbours, Mr. Speaker, where the Minister of Fisheries and Oceans and the Canadian Coast Guard, one member of 338 here in this House, delivered 20% of all Small Craft Harbours projects to her own riding. And PEI gets $500,000 a year. A summit was promised to bring in industry experts to discuss the oyster MSX problem. That was promised back in August. No talk of it whatsoever. So there's so many things that's happening in this country that affect rural economies and the rural security that are being neglected, Mr. Speaker. And I'm very, it's a burden that we carry representing the people that sent us here to speak up on issues that matter to them. Another very, very, very big matter in my province of Newfoundland and Labrador is the failure of DFO Science in carrying out adequate and accurate stock assessments on our northern cod. Right now, rumors are flying around that the vessel that was conducting the ground trawl survey has been having all kinds of mechanical issues, and that once again, for the 4th year in a row, we're in jeopardy of not having a complete, accurate northern cod survey. And for the people that are involved in the fishing industry back home, Mr. Speaker, it's complete neglect. And when there's questions about the cod biomass, the finger always gets pointed at the survey. If the survey is incomplete, well, that's the best data we have. Follow the precautionary principle, and the maximum harvest potential can never be realized. That's dollars that don't flow into our coastal communities and our coastal economies. Is dollars that, new dollars that never get a chance to enter our economy, Mr. Speaker, and it's not good enough. In the spring of 2022, I brought forward a bill to address the ecological disaster and the imbalance that exists in our ocean ecosystems due to the overpopulation of pinnipeds. Mr. Speaker, pinnipeds include seals, sea lions, and walruses. But the available quota this year, if it was taken, would reduce the consumption of fish by over 1 million tons just by taking the available quota. And all of the nutrition and the value of clothing and everything that goes with it, it's sitting there. It's a waste. It's destroying our marine ecosystem and reducing the GDP in our blue economy. So maybe some of that $400 million could have went into redeveloping our markets for seal products. But it's just not happening. All we hear is promises. And we have all these groups. They do a little study. There's 500,000 for you, and there's 100,000 for you, and there's 750,000 for you. Do a little study, you know. No results. No results. We need results. These taxpayers' dollars, they could be invested in something that's going to give results. They could. But what are they being invested in? We don't know. We can't get the document. We need the documents. And we need to get on with the business of the House. We need to start tackling crime. Right? We need to fix the budget, and we'll soon find out what that looks like, I guess, and then shortly we'll have something to chew into, Mr. Speaker. And then we look at the issue that we continually bring up here in this House, and the number one thing that I hear next to the crime is, when are we having a carbon tax election? Yep. You know, it's time to axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. Everything that I spoke about here so far included 3 of those 4 pillars. So now I can't lose the opportunity to talk about the one that's taking the most money out of the wallets of Canadians, of all those things, and that's the carbon tax. You tax the farmers that grow the food, you tax the truckers that truck it, you tax the factories that produce the food, and I'm sure the member from Winnipeg over there, he's eating the odd can of Campbell soup in his day, right? I wonder what he thinks that was cooked with. Huh? Grass fire? I don't think so. Good old bit of diesel fuel now, getting those big factory burners going, cooking up the soup for the member. Huh? Trucker trucks it into where? Out in Loblaws somewhere. Loblaws? Well, you know, and one good thing about a can of Campbell soup, they can store it on the shelf. You don't need to put it in those big freezers and refrigerator units that is government supplied. It's very efficient sitting on the shelf. So you know what? When this government right here wants to dish out money to their friends like Loblaws, that's no problem. But when the oyster fishermen and the oyster aquaculture industry is in peril in PEI, they're thrown out to the wolves like the rest of the Canadians who are depending on better from this government, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.